guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you new here, my name is Donna, and for those of you not new, thank you so much for continuing to come back and support my channel. I appreciate all of you so very much. Today I am doing episode 85 of my Palette Roulette series, in which I let an app choose a palette for me. I use it throughout the week and then I come back to you. I show you some swatches, talk about the palette, show you some pictures, and then we choose another palette. So that sounds like something you might be interested in. Please stay tuned. I also have every single one of my palette roulettes in a playlist on my channel, and that is also linked down in my description box. As I said, this is episode 85, so we have done 85 separate palettes. I think there have been a couple episodes, maybe a handful, like no more than 5 episodes, where we've done 2 palettes in those videos. So this week the palette that I am coming to you with is the ABH Norvina Volume 3 palette. This was the 3rd installment in the chaotic like rocket fire launching that happened with this little subsidiary of ABH, which is the Norvina collection palettes. All of them are numbered. They don't have names. All of the shadows inside are numbered. They do not have names. And this is supposedly a baby brand, like a spin-off of ABH. So kind of like Tarts, like Sweet Treats, or what's it called right now? I cannot remember. I'm not going to go into every single one of the shadows in this palette. There are a lot of them. There are 25. I'm also really not going to wholeheartedly review this palette, as this is the last of the large Norvina palettes in my collection that I had yet to review. I will go ahead and stick the palette roulettes for the last 2 in this video somewhere so that they're right on your clicker. You can just click on them and see what I have to say. I'm just kind of gonna overview everything that I've kind of said in the past about these ABH Norvina palettes. But first, let's look at this palette. So this is by far my favorite packaging for these Norvina palettes. This one is the kind of autumn inspired Norvina palette. It does have like this like coral colored plastic encasement, and it does have like gold leafed butterflies all over it. They're not like raised or anything, but they are still beautiful. I love that Norvina spells her name with an O that looks like a heart. I think that that is super cute, and I love the presentation of this palette. On the back, you just see the little sticker down here that tells you that this is a pro pigment palette, not an eyeshadow palette. Note that. And that it is cruelty free, it is vegan, and it has an 18-month shelf life. So then you open it up, and it does have a giant mirror on it that I kind of wish it laid flat for. And then these are the shades in this palette. Like I said, very autumn inspired. It reminds me of a fall palette for sure. Again, this is a pro pigment palette. These are pressed pigments in here. There are several that are not safe to use on the eye according to our FDA guidelines, and I will dig into that in a minute. But this is probably my favorite of the 3 that I have, just because of the color story. This color story is right up my alley. Pro pigment palettes typically have larger pans, so this does have 1.575 ounces or 0.063 ounces per pan, which isn't incredibly large, right? But in addition to that, pro pigment palettes typically have pans that pop out. This one does not. You cannot pop the pans out of this guy unless you destroy the palette. It is a $60 palette. I did get all 3 of them after they launched, like boom, boom, boom. Pretty much 2 weeks apart, I think it was. I did get all three, and I got all three for an incredible steal. I got all three of them for $70 just because of the discount codes and the coupons that I had to use. So I was pretty stoked to get all three. I do not think I will be getting the fourth one. The reason why really is just because I have over 100 palettes, right? I don't need another Norvina palette that has the same shades over and over and over again. As you heard me say for the volume 1 and volume 2, they're very redundant in their shadows, and while they might look like they're not so redundant in the pan, they don't perform on the eye true to tone as far as what is shown in the pan. So there is a lot of redundancy in these palettes regardless of what they look like in the pan. It has a 4.6 star rating on Sephora, and it does have 130 reviews. Again, it is cruelty-free and vegan. It is also gluten-free, which is fantastic for those of you out there that cannot have gluten in any of your products, let alone your cosmetics. It is 25 autumn-inspired shades, labeled A1 through 5 through E1 through 5. That's how they're labeled. That's how all the palettes are labeled. Even her smaller palettes are labeled A through C, 1 through 3. So there's that. None of them have a shade. While I think that that's kind of annoying, it's also kind of not, because you don't have to go through and try and remember every single shade. You can just say Norvina Volume 3 Mini or Norvina Volume 2 Large. A2 is my favorite shade. So there's that. There are 8 shimmers in this palette. I believe. Oh, it does lay flat. The mirror lays flat. Maybe I just needed to get it past. There's a little bit of a catch right there. I don't think I knew that about any of these palettes thus far. What I do like about the catch right there is it does stay up, and it would make it very nice for travel because it stays upright. So you can use it as a vanity mirror. I don't think I knew that it actually lays flat. So there's that. There are 8 shimmers in this palette. I do believe they are these 2 shades here, these 3 shades here, and then this one and this one, which actually is more sheeny than shimmery. I think it's more of a satin than it is a shimmer, if I'm honest. There is also a couple of them that claim gold glitters in them, but A, don't see it, and B, it didn't present itself on my face. So it also wasn't super sheeny, so it didn't actually perform like anything other than a matte. So the rest of them are matte shadows. The ones not intended for eye use are A2, 3, and 5. Then we have B, 3, 4, and 5. And we have C, 2 through 4. And we have D, 1, D2, D4, and D5. And then we have E, 1 through 3, and 5. There are 17 shadows in here not intended for eye use. 17 out of 25. So that's odd. What I will say about that statement is that a lot of the reasons why shadows are not intended for eye use is because they may cause irritation or staining on the eye. These definitely cause staining. This eye is always irritated, like it's always pissed off. So I can tell you this eye is irritated, but this eye, there's no problem with any of these shadows on my eye. And I know I've definitely used several of them in my immediate eye area. One of them I'm even using on my lower lash line today, so that's as close as you can get to my eye. That's not saying that you should also use them on your eye if you're uncomfortable with it. That's just saying I've used them. They don't affect me the way that, it could affect you. This is a hugely inconsistent formula. Some of them blend beautifully, some of them do not. Some of them have amazing pigment, some of them do not. Some of them play well with others, some of them do not. Like, that is just the overall baseline. Some of them layer on top of each other very well. Some of them erase the colors underneath them if you layer them on top. So, you know, I mean, I've said that over and over again with these palettes, so I'm just refreshing you now. It's not changed in this one, in volume 3. It's all the same. Inconsistent formula that you can't really speak to whether you love it or you don't, because there are shades in here that I do love, and there are shades in here that I do not. The color isn't super vibrant once applied, so these colors that show up in this palette in the pans do not look like this on your eye. Case in point, this color right here, this really beautiful like minty green, is in my eye look right there in between this what is supposed to be pink and this orange up here. And while it looks green, it definitely looks more like this green than it looks like this green. And then the red in my eye look here is not actually red. The red in my eye look here is this pink here. So, and this is on top of a white base. So the pigmentation in here is beautiful, but it doesn't show up on your eye the way it does actually in these pans. This color here, when you actually put it on your eye, it does have a little bit of a like chartreusey base to it, but when you put it on your eye, it just looks like a yellow. This is not how it performs on your eye look. So let me see if I can swatch it. This is how it performs on your eye look. It actually looks kind of like a dirty yellow, almost a mustard yellow shade. These shadows in this palette are just as powdery as the ones in the other two palettes were. And these shadows in this palette also sheer out, just like a lot of the other shadows in the other two palettes did. They are also super prone to some fallout. Granted, if you go in heavier, they are going to fall out worse than if you go in with a lighter hand. I typically go in with a lighter hand anyways, and just am accustomed to packing my shadows on. Mine didn't have as much fallout as they could have, but I do know that I did see some fallout from certain colors. The shimmers will fall out all over your face all day. This one here is this B1 shade right here, and I've already cleaned up the fallout 3 times. Granted, more so on this side than the other side, but this eye is my irritated eye. This eye is my eye that waters all the time, and that I consistently have to put, you know, more makeup on that inner corner to, you know, 1/3 into the eye. But I've also seen a ton of fallout. The shimmers also work best with your finger, so if you're placing them on your eye with your finger, you're going to see less fallout initially on application, but they still will fall out. Use a glitter glue if you really want it to stick to your eye. I have found great success with that. I do feel like a lot of the shades look different in the pan as far as color, but a lot of the shades also look different than what they do in the pan because they oxidize. That shade that I showed you, that A1 shade that I showed you that kind of comes out like a little bit more mustardy yellow than the vibrant, like almost neon yellow in the pan. This one oxidizes incredibly horribly. It turns really, really mustard yellow on the outskirts of it, almost to an orange. This one has a really bad oxidization, and this one also has a really bad oxidization. It's those lighter colors that you can really see the transition from it oxidizing versus what is in the center, but sooner or later, like, those shadows are all that oxidized color in the end. As far as primer goes for this palette, a white primer or a white base is going to be your best bet for pigmentation. If you really want to see more of the vibrancy that is shown in the pan, definitely use a white base. I would say for longevity reasons, you're going to want to use like a tackier primer, but those ones make these colors super hard to blend. So if you use a tackier primer, make sure that you are just packing the color on, because blendability is pretty much going to be nil when it comes to these shadows. And you know, I'm not saying anything horrible about that. I love ABH. Probably one of the brands that I kind of stand for a long time. I'm getting into a place where I am digging more into indie brands, but I do own quite a few ABH palettes. Almost every one of them that's been out in the market in the last 3 years are in my collection. I love pressed pigments because of the pigmentation of them. Pressed pigments are, it's not a shock that they're hard to blend. They just are hard to blend. These ones don't really stay on your eye without fading unless you have a really decent tacky primer. And then they last a good, 8 hours without fading. This eye look has only been on my eyes for a couple hours, and I would say I can already up close. I can already see quite a bit of fading, including in this top shade here, which is one of the lighter colors, and just the blend out color, and you shouldn't notice as much fading really with those lighter colors. But I pulled it clear out like I did with this. I pulled it clear out, and I can see that it's kind of faded away here in this pointed tip. I mean, you guys should also be able to see that, because it looks like a completely different color here than what it is here on the outside. And it's not. It was that saturated clear out to the ends, and now it's not. These, like I said, work better on a primer for sure for pigmentation and longevity, but I really think performance wise they work best on an eye that is just bare skin. I found less oxidization. I found less, not blendability issues, but less of the patchiness issues on just my bare eye. They lasted about 8 hours for me before I noticed significant fading, and it's like 1 minute they're there and the next they're faded. It doesn't happen over time that I noticed. It was just like, yep, nope. Most of the shades emphasize any eye texture that you have on your eyes, any kind of little fine lines, maybe some like crepey eyes, any of that. It's all textured, and it's all emphasized by the shadows in here. Even the mattes emphasize it quite a bit. I sound wholeheartedly negative here, but these palettes are some of my favorite palettes, because when you can get them to work, they are amazing. And the shades in here that are my favorite are amazing shades. And some of the shades in here that I deemed the worst are also some of my favorite shades, but they just take so much longer to get where I want them to be. So with that being said, I'm going to show you my favorites, and I'm going to show you the worst ones that I found in here. So A2, 3, and 5 are some of my favorites in this palette. I really do think that my man's out there. Oh, wait, come in here. So my favorites in the palette are A2, A3, and A5. And this is something that I think that the Norvina collection does do well, is their oranges. I think their oranges are fantastic. And I have an orange look that I was so pleased with, that you guys will see in the pictures if you haven't seen it already. Beautiful. But it started horribly because of the green, and we'll get there. I love B1, which is the color on my lid today, B3 and B4. And then I also love C5, which is a beautiful green shimmer, and I love E5, which is a beautiful purple shimmer. So with that being said, I can swatch those for you guys. This is the A row. Those are just so pretty, and this one is meant to be a little bit of a lighter, more bright orange. I found it really good underneath some of the shimmers to just bring out a different sense of the shimmer. And then we have B1, 3, and 4. So this is B1, B3, B4. Such a pretty color scheme. So then the last two I have are C5 and E5, and they're both shimmer shades. This is C5, this is E5. And they are just so pretty. Like the shimmers, they're really pretty. They just really, you have to handle them so tenderly because they just show so much texture, but they really are just beautiful shimmers. The worst ones are in the palette are going to be some that I've already talked to you about. A1, I hated this shade. It was a pretty piss poor shade to have to work with, and it did not at all come off like this vibrant, beautiful yellow that you see here. Like I said, it kind of turned into this like mustard yellow and then oxidized into more of a dirty, ugly, grungy orange, which I'm not opposed to grungy colors. I really do like a grungy, colorful palette, but that one was just not all it was cracked up to be. Another one I did not like was C4, which is this one here, and it is a really pretty color. I kind of dug this color. It really kind of matches like my shirt color today. I really kind of wanted to put it into play in an eye look, but it just doesn't perform. It's super patchy, and it goes over another color really well. I used it to deepen up my outer V a lot. It doesn't perform well on its own. It is one of the shades that layers well on top of others, but it's so patchy. And then all the greens. All the greens in this palette are horrendous. I do have a picture of me trying to do the eye look that I ended up really freaking happy with. It was like all orange on my lid, which you guys maybe already saw the picture of, and then it had like green and yellow in the upper areas of my eye. But putting on that green and yellow, I did it 3 times, and the picture I took was that 3rd attempt. I could not get this green for the life of me to blend in any semblance of perfection. There was no blending it. There was no blending it at all. It was darker in areas, lighter in others, sheared out in others. It was so awful. And it was a color that, it's a shade in this palette that is one of those shades that kind of lifts any other color that you put on top of it or that you try and place it over the top of. It just lifts the color right out. I don't really know what's up with that. I don't really know how that happens, but that green in particular, horrible green. The rest of them, also horrible. Like this one was not an amazing color. I did use it to blend out this green and it still performed pretty patchy, but at least I was able to get some semblance of green in my eye look. This green is this like color that even when I started this video was a lot more vibrant than it currently is. Like I think it is fading by the minute, and this green right here oxidizes so bad. So I think all the greens in here, well, besides this one that is a shimmer, it's one of my favorites. I think that all the greens in here are horrible. Like they're just bad. Like Norvina needs to not do greens, because I think that that was the same consensus I came to with the volume 2 that was the blue and green. Like the greens just aren't amazing. And maybe greens are hard. So are purples. But green's not a color that she needs to do. This red kind of turns out more like an orange. It is in that same eye look I was just talking about towards the end. And I did use this purple here to deepen it up and ended up going into this color, which has a little bit more of a red base to bring back some of that red tone, but it performs more like an orange. So there's that. I really do like it. And on the finger swatch, it does look red, but putting it onto your eye look, it does actually perform more like an orange. A lot of the browns in here just look the same on an eye look. Even some of the purples look like those browns in an eye look. The reason why I say this one was super great for deepening up is because it performed more like a brown in an eye look. It's pretty. I wanted to love it, but it just performs more like a brown. This is a really pretty purple. But I mean, realistically, there's a lot of like purple tones in here, but you only have like this one that performs like a purple. The rest of them are more brown and orange, and there's that. The kind of like yellowish orange top that I have in my eye look today is actually this color here, which is kind of like a maize, or what is that color? I think it's called maize. I could be wrong. It looks more orange in my eye look today, and I don't know if that's because of the colors I paired it with or no. As far as brow bone color, like this palette doesn't really scream, I have a brow bone color for you. But this one is what is in my brow bone today, and I really do quite enjoy it. It is a little glittery, so you are going to find a little bit of fallout with it, but it is really pretty. And this one is also a really pretty shade for brow bone, but it swings a little coral. So if you can deal with that, then that would be a pretty perfect shade for you. But I'm going to stop rambling on about this palette because I have already talked about the Norvina palettes in the past. There are 2 other palette roulettes that I've done on the Norvina palettes. The formula is so inconsistent that there are some real wins in it and there's some real losses in it. And I can't say that the losses outweigh the wins. So, and this palette was a pretty dang penny. So I am going to keep it in my collection. It does have some shades in it that I really love, and it screams fall to me. So I really want to open it up and try it again in the fall time. I guess I will stop there. So now we're going to pick a new palette, and how I pick my palettes is utilizing the Decide Wheel app that I found in the App Store. I do have a Samsung Note 9, so it is an Android system, and the, oops, not that button. The app looks like this. I did put all of my palettes into it. As we use the palettes through the palette roulette, I do take them out. As we get new palettes in and I've hauled them with you, I do put them in here. So I do think that I am updated. I am going to spin this wheel, and how you spin the wheel is just pressing the center button here and the wheel spins, and then when it stops, we'll have a new palette. I apparently didn't take out Norvina Volume 3. What is wrong with me? I just checked that. All right, we have the Morphe and Jaclyn Hill Dark Magic palette. That is the palette that was pulled. So I am going to go get it. I will be right back. All right, this is the Morphe Jaclyn Hill Dark Magic palette. This was part of her Vault collection, and this will be our palette for next week. This one does have like an array of greens, blues, and neutral tones. I'm actually kind of excited for this. I know that we've had like a combination of like small versus big, but I feel like we've been really diving into a lot of color lately, so it's going to be nice to have just a simple, easy palette to work with. Morphe isn't my favorite formula on the planet, but their shadows are really, really easy to use for the most part. I'll come back to you guys next week and we'll talk about this palette. Just some final words for you. I don't want anybody to take me wrong. I do love the Norvina palettes. They speak to me in a way not a lot of palettes do. I feel a little more creative with them than I do other palettes. I kind of love looking at the chaotic display of colors and being able to like pick from them. It like gets my creative juices going, I guess, and I don't have a problem with palettes that take a little more work, honestly, as long as there are also colors that work well enough in those palettes that I can have a really quick eye look as well, because I love makeup playtime. Even if it's just me, makeup playtime in here, in this room, digging into this makeup palette that gives me joy and creates curiosity to try different makeup looks. This was like kind of out of my box, right? I wouldn't wear this to work on a daily, and there are quite a few pictures that I did that aren't looks that I would typically wear on a work day, but those looks took me, you know, quite a bit of time to do, 1.5 to 2 hours to do them and get them just the way I wanted to. But with that being said, there are looks that you can create in that palette that aren't going to take you that long. And that one especially has a lot of those neutral tones in it for those people that just don't want to deal with color. It's more neutral than it is anything else. I don't want this video to come off wholeheartedly negative, and I know that I didn't dive a whole lot into the palette, but again, I did put into the cards the 2 other Norvina volume palettes and the Palette Roulette that I did for those, because I think I talk a lot more about the palette, how it came about, and you know, just digging in to them, and I think that you'll get a lot more information out there. I don't want you guys to think that I'm being negative about said palette. I know that there's a whole lot of negativity out there about these things. I'm not jumping on those bandwagons. I'm not. For me, this is about the makeup, not the bandwagons. There are people and things out there that I don't support because I'm not tone deaf and I'm not going to support certain activities. I know that ABH is one of those companies that's kind of in the YouTube news lately. I have a lot of ABH, and I'm not going to stop using it because of what's going on now. I just am not purchasing right now from that. I'm also not purchasing from Jeffree Star because of the same reasons. So, like, if we're going to hold everybody to a standard, hold everybody to a standard. Not just some. Morphe, Jaclyn Hill, they're always a hot topic. I'm going to use it because I have it and because I've paid for it and because I like it. There are some things out there that we shouldn't tolerate. I understand that. But I'm also going to keep coming to you with my Palette Roulettes over maybe some brands or people that are controversial that I have in my collection, because at one point in time somebody else purchased this too and maybe they want some information on it. Not trying to highlight poor behavior, I'm trying to highlight a palette. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope that my tangent didn't get crazy, and I hope that you guys didn't think that this came off as crazy negative. I love having you guys here. I am so happy that I am just trucking right along through all these palettes. I cannot believe that this will have been, it's close to 90 palettes. I think there are 5 videos that we did 2 palettes in, so this would then be number 91. I do believe. I'll have to go through and count for sure in order to be sure. I know that I have decluttered a few that have come up, and I know that I've brought more in because I'm kind of addicted to palettes. I appreciate you guys for sticking around. I appreciate you guys for watching my videos, and I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you enjoyed it so much so that you're considering giving it a big thumbs up. Or maybe you didn't like it and you want to thumbs it down. That's okay too. Either way, it's engagement and that helps me out. But I do hope that you liked me enough that you're considering subscribing to my channel. I do upload content 3 to 4 times a week, depending on the week. And I hope to see you guys down in the comment section. If you do subscribe to my videos, please don't forget to hit the notification bell. I won't want you to miss anything. I hope that you consider subscribing before you go. I hope that you love this video. I hope it wasn't too negative. And until next time, guys, bye.